Chapter 10 is very simple and straightforward. We're just going to go over some of the common resume myths that are out there. And a lot of what we're going to talk about is review. So this is going to be a pretty short chapter. I just want to remind you of some things. Resume writing has always been prone to myths, like the 9 things that we're going to discuss here. Overstatements, misconceptions, misperceptions. Part of this is because the rejection rate is so high. You know, if you've got 15,000 or more resumes that are coming in for one single job opening, of course, not everybody gets that job, right? But success actually becomes rather simple when you follow some good guidance. The things that we're going to talk about, the myths that we're going to discuss here, are very commonplace in the mind of resume writers. Like a lot of other things, learn what you can, don't believe everything you hear, and do what makes sense to you. I want you to remember, don't ever tell a lie. Write like you're a teacher, like that's your role, and keep the hiring manager's perspective in mind always. Myth number 1, it's all about you. A resume should be all about you. Hiring managers honestly don't get excited about people. They get excited about possibilities. Your resume, remember, it's a teaching tool. It's going to map out the skills, the experience that you've got, and it needs to relate that to the needs and desires of the employer. The subject matter, really, it is you, but it always has to tell a story that reflects the requirements, the passions of the hiring company. That's probably the single greatest truth about all successful resumes. The perfect resume, if there is such a thing, is one that concisely addresses every need, every desire, every fantasy of the person who's reading it. The only way to even come close to that, and that's an ideal situation, is to gather as much possible intelligence as you can in your resume reconnaissance work. You need to scrutinize the job opening, check out the description, look very closely at the company's website, get a feel for what their goals are. Try to even talk to the recruiter. Do diligence in your resume reconnaissance. Do anything and everything that you can to see inside their world, to understand what their fears are, what their dreams and aspirations are. And then you put together a killer resume that speaks directly to their world and their passions. Myth number 2, that your resume should be only 1 page long. This probably comes as an offspring of the reality that, a poorly written resume is a struggle to work through. Recruiters, hiring managers, they're just not going to put up with it if you got a 2-page or even more page, gobbledygook collection. Most resumes, though, most really good resumes, are actually going to be 2 pages long. Now, a 1-page resume is very common, especially, and it's even something that's appropriate if it's for like an entry-level candidate or somebody who's just graduated. The only resumes that I recommend would be longer than 2 pages would be if it's a very high-level candidate or an extremely specialized profession, something like top-tier corporate executives, that kind of thing. In general, less is better than more. So 1 page would be better than 3. But again, 2 can be very good if appropriate. If you've got to use more than 2 pages to fit everything, then you're probably putting way too much detail in there, or you're using up too much white space. Myth number 3, include everything possible. There are 3 reasons why you shouldn't try to squeeze everything that you've ever done into your resume. One is when you cram in too much information, it makes that resume hard to read. That's exactly the excuse that a busy recruiter is going to need to just take one more resume off their desk and file it in the trash can. If you put too much detail in your resume about your employment history, that tells the reviewer that you're an amateur and probably very insecure about your qualifications. And then number 3, the fact is nobody really cares about you and your employment history. These people have got hundreds of resumes to wade through. Okay, why do they want to read, an epic tale about one candidate? They won't. Remember what they said in school? Keep your work brief, concise, and to the point. Keep it simple. Myth number 4. A resume needs to include a career objective. Not so. A career objective paragraph, if you think about it, totally violates one of the primary rules of resume writing. And that is, a resume must consistently appeal to the needs and desires of the hiring company. The recruiters, the hiring managers, they don't care about your career goals. Their mission is to find somebody who's going to help run and build an organization. So most successful resume writers today don't use career objectives. Instead, try focusing all that energy and time on creating your executive summary. If you speak multiple language, if you've got extensive training, or you're certified in something, or you've been recognized, for saving a company a lot of money, put those things right up front so people can see them right away. Myth number 5. Your resume has to have complete sentences. Now, as a society, we want things quick and we want them now. This is the age of the sound bite, not the novel. Our brains actually process and digest small pieces of information, little snippets. And I want you to think about some of these sound bites here that I'm sure you remember and they have stuck with you. Just do it. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The eagle has landed. And here's one of my favorites. Read my lips. No new taxes. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Keep in mind here, a resume is not a term paper. It's a teaching tool. Think about some of the classic teaching aids that you might have, experienced in school. Roy G. Biv. This is the sequence of colors in a rainbow. Each letter here denotes it's the first letter of a color in the rainbow, and it's designed to simply relate to you and help you to remember the order of those colors. It's very short, easy to understand, and it puts something in your brain that sticks there. Another one is Holmes. Each one of these is the first letter of one of the Great Lakes. So these are little tricks that people have developed that help us to remember something, get a point across, and they're short. That's the thing that we want to remember about this. These are not full sentences. They're not complete sentences. They stick in your head. Fragmented sentences, cleverly worded one-liners, are very effective, and they're used by great resume writers every single day. In fact, you should try, if possible, to use clipped sentences and bulleted text whenever possible. Save your grammatically correct sentences for the cover letter. Okay? Myth number 6, recruiters read every resume. Now, I think we have hit this one pretty good, right? We know. Most resumes are electronically scanned anyways. That means, before anybody looks at them, they get purged. After that, we've got 85% of those resumes, the ones left from the electronic scan, they're going to get weeded out because of the 10-second scan. Then we're going to have a 30-second scan of those that remain, and that's going to give us basically a handful of viable applicants. So in the end, you might say that out of 1,100 resumes that have been submitted for one job position, and that's pretty typical, that it's going to come down to only half a dozen actually getting read. So much for that myth. Resume number 7, that you have to put the phrase references available upon request on your resume. Recruiters and hiring managers already assume that you're going to be providing resumes, so most people don't put this actually on the resume. If, however, you want to seem like you're ahead of the game and prepared, make sure that you do take a list with you to your interview. Take a list of your resumes, and then when they ask for them, you can just, kind of pull them out and hand them right over. Myth number 8, your resume needs to reflect the applicant's best qualities. Your resume is not an autobiography. It's not going to be used to let people see that you're honest, that you're generous, that you're, good to children, that you're nice to your mom. It's a uniquely formatted training piece. It describes how your skills, how your experiences are going to benefit that company. Your best qualities are probably not of interest to them at all. What they care about is your relevant skills, your very significant accomplishments, your demonstrated ability to help them achieve their goals and meet their challenges. End of story. That's all that they care about. Myth number 9, list every job you ever had. No. A resume. Remember, it's a personal teaching tool. It's not an affidavit. You should only include jobs that are relevant to the open job position that you're applying for. So, for instance, if you're applying for an executive position at a bank, you're not going to include, a job that you had in college as a greenskeeper at the local country club. If you worked at a shoe store for 3 months and then you got fired because the boss was a total loser, why would you want to put that on your resume? And the same thing holds true for anything that's controversial. Don't put it on your resume. Any kind of church work that you did, political activities. If you're a member of the NRA, you should leave that stuff out because there's a possibility that you could clash with somebody's fundamental beliefs, and you don't want to get eliminated, just because of that. If you want to include that kind of stuff on your resume, you're going to do it at your own risk. If you use your resume as a teaching tool, your student will want to meet you. That'll get you the interview. Up next, last but not least, we're going to wrap things up with one more video.